When we think about domestic violence, we automatically turn our minds to women. But our next guest is actually going to shed a light on the fact that there are men that actually get abused in our community. And he found on his journey that the LGBTQI community didn't really have any support to actually turn to when domestic violence was at hand. Hi, this is Joey Buzzertil, and welcome to the Secret Men's Business Podcast. On today's show, we're going to be speaking to Blake Ryan, who's actually created a LGBTQI domestic violence support group, and he's going to talk to us about it and help us understand how gay men and men in general can get support in regards to domestic violence. Blake, how are you?
Hi, Joey. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for having time to come on and talk about it. It's really funny. We were talking about before the podcast started that the SMB group was looking for some sort of way to get into information about domestic violence, and then you just appeared on my Facebook. So the gods were helping me.
It was
Um,
fate.
yeah. So I know your group is fairly new. So do you want to just introduce your group and yourself to the audience?
Yeah, so we created the group because there was a lack of support for the LGBTQI community and domestic violence. We wanted a place where people could get access to what services were out there, and it kind of started as just a support group for people to talk to each other and express, how they were feeling during it, get advice. And it just grew into something so much bigger than that. We decided we wanted to eventually put on barbecues, we like events, we wanted to do care packs for people who were escaping domestic violence. It just grew. So
That's really good. Is the group just mainly Victoria, Melbourne, or does it cover all of Australia, or is it global?
so I'm Sydney based,
Right.
and so is most of the admin on there. But we do have people in Melbourne as well. So we're going to start in Sydney, and if it really picks up, we're going to go all along the east coast. Who knows
That
where we'll go?
that's good. And like that's the thing that I was saying to you again before we started is that anything that Secret Men's Business can do to support you, to advocate, to advertise, because the thing is that do you think that the community don't don't know about it, or they just shun it? Like, what is the reason why you think there was no support?
So there's a lot of stigma around domestic violence, and people either they know it happens and they know it's out there, and a lot of people are experiencing it without even knowing. But it's just one of those things people don't really want to talk about, and that's where I come in because I don't mind talking about stuff, and I think that the more people know about it and start having a conversation about it, then maybe we can start doing something to actually help prevent it in the future.
Yeah. I mean, like, so in your creating the group and meeting all these people, have you been hearing reasons why? Like, one of the reasons that I think of is that this is just an assumption, but I just think that a lot of men would think that men shouldn't be abused, and so if a man's being abused, it may be seen as weak, and so he won't speak about it or report it. Like, I had a really good friend of mine who was in a relationship who was being abused, and it took us ages, all his friends, to get him to actually do something. Like, I'm talking months. So
Yeah.
is that the common thing that you're hearing?
Oh, so much. I've met some really beautiful people who have um, like messaged me either on the Facebook group or personally, and I've been privileged to hear their stories. And there's this, there's so I could go through so much, but there's this thing about being a man and
Mm.
how it is weak to talk about domestic violence, but that's so not the truth. It's far from the truth. And I've heard of police who turn up to like a domestic violence thing. They just sort it out like boys do, just give them a knockback or something like that. And it's
Really?
really hard because
Yeah. So when two guys are having a domestic thing and someone calls the police, are you saying that sometimes they're not? It's not taken seriously.
absolutely, yeah. And
Wow.
then the LGBTQI community, we don't have a great history with the police and then that plays in people's minds as well.
Yeah. So there's like a fear there.
Yeah.
I'm wondering as well, like, do you have like an overview that you can share in regards to what you consider to be domestic violence? Because I know
So
some people think of it being different things, but I know that it could be a number of things.
Yeah, the hardest thing is not actually knowing what domestic violence is. And it's very broad. So it's not just violence, it could be controlling your finances, checking your phone, keeping tabs on you. It's this actually a higher rate of emotional abuse than there is physical and sexual
Yeah,
violence.
so it's people actually verbalizing, like it's verbal
Yeah.
abuse is seen as domestic as abuse as well, right?
Yeah. And it's the emotional abuse that seems to have a bigger toll on people as well. So
Yeah. I know you may not know statistics or numbers, but can you sort of share, like, I'm in Melbourne, you're in Sydney. What do you feel is around the numbers? Like, are we talking a lot of people, or are we talking like, are you finding a lot of people are turning to you?
yeah, we're getting more and more people coming to us all the time. The domestic violence against trans women of color is the highest single minority that, and then you've got, yeah, so about 1 in 5, they
Right.
say. But then there's not a lot of research that actually goes into our community, and it seems to be all focused around heterosexual relationships. So
Well,
hopefully we can fix that. I want to focus on us.
that's why it's really good what you're doing. I think that, regardless of it being LGBTQI or heterosexual or it's men in general, I think the tide is turning because a lot of attention has been placed on women.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of terrible things that have happened, but there's also been terrible things that have happened to men. And like you were saying, a lot of people don't report it, and so we don't hear about it. Um, I'm just curious, like in regards to our like the community, like women, if women were in a same-sex relationship and there was domestic violence, is there support for them? Because I guess they can turn to the female networks, can't they?
So it's tricky. There's an automatic system when you report domestic violence, and as soon as they see a female victim of, or a survivor, sorry, of domestic violence, you automatically get linked up with court support services. So
Right.
when there's two, they both get linked up with court support services. So in the safe room within the court, you'd be sitting right next to the perpetrator. So there's we have so much to do when it comes, and then if you're a male you don't get linked with anything, so
Yeah. So what who's, I don't want to say the word fault, but why is this happening? Like, you're sort of digging deep into this world. Is it a government thing? Is it, what is it? What's
I,
causing this
probably
lack?
resources, I guess. Like, it's like I said, I guess not many people are actually talking up about it, but enough people are experiencing this and it's just not really fair. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Do,
I
do,
wish
I
I
was
had a
gonna
magic wand.
I know. I was going to say, do you think that maybe all the attention is going towards like suicide prevention and mental health, and they think that it falls under that, but I don't think it really does. I think it's sort of its
No,
own umbrella. Could
yeah,
that be could that be the main reason you think? Because I know that being a therapist, I know that mental health is getting a lot of attention at the moment, like lots of money, lots of support. So the reality is that there is support, but it looks like they're overlooking certain things because of what you were saying earlier. Um,
okay.
so, what do you think? How do we change it?
How do we change that? I
Like,
think like
what's your plan?
I think we need to actually make people aware of what exactly domestic violence is, and that get the message across that it's crime. At the end of the day, domestic violence is a crime. But a lot of people don't realize that they've experienced some sort of emotional abuse, physical abuse, until they're out of the picture. And they think that it's too late to speak up, but it's not. It's
Mm,
not. And then there's groups like us. I mean, we're not probably not the only group out there, but there are groups like us who want to help and guide people in the right direction.
yeah. So, are you like? Is your group more of a supportive network, or is it a therapeutic network where there's like, is there professionals in the group that support the trauma part, or are you more of a support and then you refer people to other places if they need to get sort of like they need professional help?
It started out because I'm a community services student at the moment, so I'm not yet qualified, but eventually, yeah, we want to be able to offer. We have a mentorship program. They're not qualified, but we are people who listen. We don't really tend to give that much advice, but just even having friends there that can listen and support you. We
Yeah.
have links to free legal advice. We have, you know, if I'm available, I can come and help you. I'll sit by you while you're going through those tough times. We started out as I literally just created this in my lunch break. That was out of passion. I said, like, I just want a place for people to go and not feel alone. Because one of the biggest things about domestic violence is the perpetrator cuts you off from your family. You have
Mm,
no support. You are so marginalized, it's not funny.
mm.
So I was like, that's it. I'm going to create this support group. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring everyone back together again and create this sense of community so people can build their resilience again. 'Cause
Yeah, but I love that. I love your passion because it's literally that's exactly the same way that I created Secret Men's Business because I lost friends to suicide, and it was the same thing. I was on my lunch break, and I said, "I'm going to create this group," and created it. And it's just because you see the gap there that's
yeah.
occurring. Look, I hope the answer to this question is no. But have you received any resistance? Has there been any resistance from anyone? Like, or do you feel like everyone's supporting you?
No, I feel so supported. Just
Beautiful.
even from people just messaging me in my inbox, saying they never thought they had a voice before. And that's beautiful. I love that. And I
Yep.
hopefully like even if I can just help a few people like to feel like they do have support, then I've succeeded. Like that's my goal. It's just to
Yeah.
help
And
some.
I think it's a really good experience for you to be a student and doing this. Like it's such an exciting thing for you to I mean, I know it's sort of like a sensitive topic, but it's an exciting project for you to invest in and do it out of the kindness of your heart. That's what I think we need more of. I mean, as we evolve, there's going to be hopefully government funding and all that, but these sort of supports. I mean, at the end of the day, what people really want is someone to listen to them,
Yeah, that's
just not to
true.
feel alone.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel, I just wanted to expand a little bit about the domestic violence terminology, but do you feel that there are some myths that we can sort of explore? Like, what are some of the myths that you feel are out there? Like, touched upon the fact about being male and being strong. Are there any
Yeah.
others?
Oh, there's heaps. So, quite people always just think you could just leave if you're experiencing that. It's just not the case. The perpetrators are very clever at making you think and that, everything's gonna be okay. They never meant to do that. There is that cycle of violence. So it starts out in like a honeymoon phase and then it goes through violence and then they denial and stuff like that. So people can't just get out.
Yeah,
They don't have finances, sometimes don't even have a mobile phone, they can't have ID, they can't leave the house without the perpetrator letting them. So
yeah.
there's that.
And I guess the emotions with that are no different to a woman, aren't they? Like,
So much,
I've dealt with a lot of female clients who have gone through that. I haven't really dealt with a male client, but to be honest, I've dealt with it myself. Like I'm listening to you and I'm going, oh my God, I was domestic. That was me. Like I didn't get
yeah,
hit, but I remember my partner and I broke up and he wouldn't stop. And so every time I'd see him, it would be this abusive tirade. And so I didn't realize back then, this was in the 90s. There wasn't really a name that we could call it. We just called him psycho.
yeah,
But you know
yeah,
what I mean? But no one really did anything to actually, no physical, support came in. It was just me and my friends, and I had to sort of avoid him, and I had to change my phone number.
mm.
So, what other myths are there?
So they always think that it'll just go away. So usually violence, like I said, it is a cycle, and it's if it happens once, it's usually going to happen again. And perpetrators, like the statistics say, that they're not going to change. So,
Mm. And is it normally like, is the situation, I am sort of exploring this, so, I don't know the truth. I mean, that's why I guess it's good having you on the show. But, are things like rape and, is there more of a dominant person with a passive person? Or could it be random? Could it be both, people that are both assertive and then all of a sudden the one person changes? Like, is the variety or the variance quite like different?
yeah, so there's that. Domestic violence is all about power and control. So if there's two people struggling for that power and control, like you can just imagine what would go on there. But usually you'll see someone, and it's hard because you never actually realize that it's happening. It kind
Yeah.
of just creeps into your relationship. And then, like I said, you don't really notice it's happened until afterwards. And you go, yeah, that guy was really abusing me, or that girl, like she was controlling my finances, where I was going, like, all my friends. So, yeah, I guess, oh,
I guess the
yeah,
hard part is if, say, I think what I'm learning from you is that if someone says, I don't want to do that, I want to keep, I want to look after my own money,
mm,
or I want to catch up with my own friends, or I want to go out tonight, and the person saying no and getting aggressive and getting angry, and sometimes even using, guilt trips or using all these ways to get you to do what they want.
yeah,
You're right. It's so easy for you not to think that you're being abused. You
mm,
may think that, because I'm guessing the perpetrators also manipulate.
yeah. So, especially when there's love involved, like when you're in love with the perpetrator, you've got these rose-colored goggles on. So,
Mm,
and then there's the fact of people who aren't out, the threat of outing
yeah.
them and
Okay.
ruining their careers. Like, you know, it's
Yeah.
quite horrible.
Yeah, it would be. Do you mind, and you don't have to go into a lot of detail or, mention anything in specifics, but like what's probably since you've started the group, what's probably one of the most uncomfortable things that you've heard?
The hardest thing that I think I've had to deal with is that people are still in love with the perpetrator, and that doesn't go away. The
Right.
hardest thing is that we're more likely to go back into that relationship. And as someone on the outside watching that happen, it's quite awful. But the emotional effects afterwards, they're just quite extravagant, and people don't feel like they can talk up. But one of the things that makes me the most angry is that people don't feel like they have enough support when they go through courts. There's
Mm,
no one that sits and helps them, like the legal case. It's terrifying. And it probably means that they're going to share that story with others, and it's going to stop
mm.
people actually talking up about it.
Is that because, like, say if you got a lawyer and the lawyer was your support, would that be work? Are you talking more about the support, meaning support that should be available to everyone?
Yes. So, like what
Yeah,
I said, when a woman is has survived a domestic violence relationship, she gets linked up with court support, and they will sit with her in the safe room. They have meetings beforehand. They make
yeah,
sure that the perpetrator's not coming anywhere near them. That's just not available to same-sex or LGBT community.
yeah, or men in general, because I've heard of lots,
Yeah,
lots of men. So, you know, like, do you think that men just we need to do something? Like, how do we do? Like, what do you think men should do? Is there anything that we can sign or anything that we could do to activate our voices so we are heard? Or do you feel like this is just going to be something that's going to roll out on its own? Like, what's your
oh, it won't roll out on its own. People have to start talking about it.
yeah? So
Don't
how do we do that? What's your suggestion?
I guess just learning about what domestic violence is so that you know the signs and you actually speak up about it. I guess where I see our group going is by raising awareness of what domestic violence is. Hopefully, more people will feel okay about talking about it, because that's the start. It's just creating a conversation, and that conversation can turn into something amazing.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, just listening to you, like, would it be beneficial to start a petition of some sort to get this community to sign it to say that we want some sort of support because,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure, people have died, I'm guessing, right?
Yep. Yeah. A lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, that's terrible. So, like, again, we don't hear about it, do we?
No, and I'll be the first person to sign that petition, because
Yeah.
I just feel so passionately about, being able to have the same support that's offered to others.
Mm. And so, when someone is going through something like that, what advice would you give them in regards to rebuilding?
I think you feel like you don't have any support around, and that's not true. We are quite strong as a community, and if we are together, then we can do anything. So reach out to groups like mine, who will be there to support you.
Yeah. What about okay, so what about moving forward from that? You may not know the answer to this, but like what about, if someone's been abused and they've lost a sense of self, do you recommend that they do anything in particular to regain their self-acceptance or their self-worth? Or
Yeah, I guess it
because I mean, it
definitely
is
helps because
traumatic, isn't it?
you definitely need to speak to professionals. And that's one of the things that when I did start this group was that we're not professionals. And if you're ever feeling like you're in danger, the first thing you do is just call 000.
Yeah,
There are support out there. Every police station has a gay liaison officer and a domestic violence liaison officer. So if you feel like you've called the police and they're not helping, ask to speak to them because they're trained in this.
yeah. And
It's
it
so
sounds like you've got
important.
all the information anyway. So, I think that's the thing is that people meet other people, then people give each other support. Through that support, you hear the experiences. Like someone may have is coming out of it while someone's coming into it. So you get that ideology. Because I think the biggest thing that when thinking back to the 90s, my biggest thing was I didn't think it was going to end.
Mm.
Like every time I'd go out, he would be there, and every time I'd be there and I'd talk to someone, he would literally grab a drink and pour it on us or throw it at us. And I mean, like the support was that the bouncers did something about it, but one day it escalated, and I cut my hand. So that was like the last straw for me to sort of get more assertive.
Yeah,
Like I didn't do anything legally, but I got assertive and said, do not talk to me again, blah blah blah. So, the thing is, I think the more people share their stories, more people tell each other what's going on as men, the more that we'll know and the more that we won't be ashamed. Do you think shame is a part of the reason why we don't?
yeah. People feel so embarrassed by it, and that's part of what the perpetrator does. But it's nothing to be ashamed of, and it's actually takes a very strong person to stand up for yourself, especially when you're going through such a traumatic time. So there's one piece of advice that's that, even by just standing up, you're actually really, really strong.
That's great. Thank you, Blake, so much for coming on the show and talking to us about it. Do you want
Thank
to
you
do?
so
I'm going to put all your links below, but do you want to just tell the audience the name of your group and where they can find you? And I'll put the links on there that they can find you really easily.
Yeah, so we're the LGBTIQA plus domestic violence awareness and advocacy group on Facebook. We have our little logo. It's a lighthouse with the rainbow, so you can't really miss us.
I've got your logo on the cover of the podcast, so I love your
Yeah,
logo.
beautiful.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
yeah, so if there's anything that we can do or we can work together, just yell out because I think it's a great thing that you're doing and it's a great support. So we want to make sure that as many people know about you and can reach out to you. So thanks again.
Thanks, Joey, and thanks for having us.
That's okay. You've been listening to the Secret Men's Business podcast. This is Joey Buzzertle. The podcast's out on Monday and Thursday. Now, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications. All the information about today's podcast is linked below, and there's going to be a bio about Blake and his great group. Till next time, guys. See you later. Bye.